Carrie.
Here.
Mr. Radel.
Here.
Mr. Thornton.
Here.
Mr. Urban. Mr. Wilovich.
Here.
9.
Okay. Additions and deletions, we're going to remove the county manager search committee discussion from the agenda due to the fact that 2 of the 3 could not make it.
Mr. Lombardo, that's not a good sign.
Huh?
That's not a good sign.
No, certainly
I
not.
mean,
But
hopefully, the 3 members are gonna commit the time and effort to get this done.
I agree with you.
That wasn't,
Oh,
it was not their fault.
okay. I don't know what the reasoning was. I just know that we had canceled it.
That's 6 and 7.
6, it will be 6 and 7,
Was
yeah.
not their fault, Tim. She said,
Well,
No, 6 were still.
who was
doing
Oh, no, we could still talk about number 6, so number 7, yeah. All right, number 7, and then can we move number 1 to
yeah,
the end?
and we're gonna put a time limit of 9:30.
Time limit of 9:30,
Yep.
that's pretty quick.
That's ambitious.
We'll be expeditious
That's
about it. I don't know if
ambitious.
9:30 is gonna work, but,
we've been here since, we've been in meetings since 5 o'clock.
all
Yeah.
right. Motion to adopt the agenda,
Motion adopted agenda with the amendments.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Discussion regarding ordinance amending Luzerne County zoning map to rezone 1 parcel of property totaling 0.827 acres in Hughstown Borough from LI Light Industrial District Zone to R2, 2-family residence district zone. Go ahead.
Hi, Council. I'm Matt Jones, Director of Planning and Zoning, if you'll have me. Councilman McGinley, thank you for being so cognizant of my time. He's always anxious to get me out of here. I don't know if it's just because he's tired of seeing me, he wants to get me out of here.
Just so long as you don't talk too much.
Yeah.
Get to the
I've
point.
already failed. Very quickly, Council, thank you. This evening, we have a proposal we need to process from landowner John Burgett and Michelle Rowlands. Their agent, Martin Stavali, is here tonight in the audience. Mr. Burgett could not make it, and Mr. Stavali will tell us a little bit more about that if you'll allow in a moment. But I wanted to introduce this item very quickly. They requested to rezone a parcel of land that they own. This is in Hughstown Borough. This is in the vicinity of the neighborhood of Upper Pittston. They own a parcel of land, 0.827 acres. They want to rezone it from light industrial to the 2-family residential district. This is on Mitchell Drive, also known as Abbey Lane. The idea being that they want to be able to build a home on the property. This would allow for their future residential development. They have ambitions of building a single-family home there. A diagram of that sketch is in front of you. The Luzerne County Planning Commission met on January 12th, 12 days ago, and voted unanimously to recommend approval of this rezoning proposal and forward it to you. Any ordinance amendment typically requires 3 meetings of council if it's gone through the usual process. That being tonight, we discussed it. Your next meeting, you would then consider whether to introduce it officially, and then the 3rd and final meeting would be a public hearing for opportunity of public comment in an official capacity, which would be advertised to the neighbors, and your final vote to approve or disapprove. The picture of what this would look like before and after the rezoning is in front of you. You've got 2 diagrams. If you have any questions, let me know, but this would not constitute spot zoning. It would simply be an extension of the already existing 2-family residential district across the street. And so with that, I would recommend that you approve this item and allow Mr. Stavali to make just a quick comment as well, if that's all right.
Sure, go ahead, sir.
Please.
For listening to me. I'm here on behalf of John Brigette and his wife, Michelle. And why he wanted to make it tonight, but he's a assistant wrestling coach for the University of Scranton, and they had a wrestling match tonight. So that's why I got voted to be here. Like he said, what he wants to do is just build his own residential house there. We're just taking it from light industrial down to an R2. And that's all he wants to do. And if you can't see it, I have a map here if you guys want to If you want me to pass it around, I can. Okay, that's it. If you have any questions, I can answer them.
It's a nice neighborhood.
Yeah, it is a nice neighborhood.
Are you living in there, John?
No, I don't. I just know it's nice. I've been there many times.
So they own the entire property, right?
Correct.
Okay.
But it was it was a big, huge chunk of land down there, and we subdivided it off. I'm taking so much of it, that you guys will be seeing me here in probably in a month or so. And he took so much of it, and then he divided up where the houses are in that development, a lot for himself to build his own house.
Isn't that in the vicinity of that power rail company and Comcast and those up there?
No.
Try to
Power
keep-
companies down there, yes.
Yeah.
There's like a little substation across from the school.
Okay, yeah, by the top of Parsonage Street, that stop sign is on the left, that back there.
Correct. It's on a New Street and Parsonage Street.
Okay.
It's in the
It's on the
actual,
corner.
it's in the actual neighborhood.
But
Or
this,
across the
this
street
piece
from
of
the school.
property is in the neighborhood in the back, up
I know,
there.
yeah, I know.
Yeah. Yes.
It'll be on the agenda for next meeting.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. All right. Next, discussion regarding resolution authorizing an agreement with Lackawanna County to produce joint transportation studies and authorizing a $150,000 total budget over 2 years for a project consultant.
Thanks, Councilman Lombardo. You'll remember we discussed this briefly. You appropriated $100,000 to the Department of Planning and Zoning to, with the idea that we would be hiring a consultant to help us produce these 5 transportation-related documents over the coming 2 years. The idea being that we would here tonight with is seeking your tacit approval for authorization of the idea being that the total project budget for paying a consultant would be $150,000. So you've already provided us $100,000 this budget year, with the idea being that the cap would be $150, and $50 would then be asked for in 2024's annual budget for finishing this project and publishing it that year. We are also asking for your permission to let the administration enter into a cost-sharing agreement with Lackawanna County. They share the same MPO with us, and we would be producing these documents in a joint manner. The more interesting of the documents is a congestion management study that will be studying congested corridors in the region, like Davis Street off of 81, in Music, Memorial Highway in and around Dallas, sort of the old Cross Valley in the back mountain, trying to figure out what the pinch points are and whether it be coordination of signaling or what have you. So Luzerne we're proposing to take the lead, and we're looking to work with the Department of Mapping that we have here in-house and give them a small piece of the consultant pot so that they would produce the maps required for these documents in-house. We would basically be keeping the money in the family, so to speak, and sort of giving them some money that shows that they are bringing in revenues for some of the expertise and services that they're providing their sister department. So 3 out of the 5 documents are going to require some mapping. And I talked to Dan Reese, the mapping director. He is willing to provide us those services for $32,000. And so the idea is that the total project budget is $150, mapping would get $32, and the consultant we would engage with under contract would get $118. And so that's why I'm bringing this to you today. The scheme is that Luzerne is fronting the expenses as one of the 2 partners in the MPO. We would get half of our expenses paid back directly from PennDOT under our existing grant contract. That money is already in contract, guaranteed. They basically want us to perform these studies and are ready to pay us for it. The other half of our reimbursement would then come from Lackawanna. They would pay us, and then they would seek their reimbursement from PennDOT under the same agreement for the money that they pay us. So this is paid for
effectively, I just need you to agree to front the costs, similar to how we discussed last fall. And there's a rundown of these 5 projects in some more detail if you wanted to look at it, and the various federal and state laws, regulations, executive orders, et cetera, that require them, so that we can continue to collect this money from our financing partners, PennDOT, Federal Highways, Federal Transit, to perform these studies. So that is what I'm asking from you tonight. The resolution is drafted and it was prepared to be put in your packet here tonight. You can take a close look at that. And so if there's any questions, I'm here to answer them, but that's what I'm asking for you to look over. And if you would be so kind to consider putting to your next meeting for a final vote of approval for the resolution on February 14th, please.
Thank you. Mr. Thorne.
Question. I read it today, the whole resolution, and it appeared to me that, you know, because it is a joint agreement with Lackawanna County, joint transportation study, it appeared that Luzerne County was paying the whole $150,000 with Lackawanna County contributing nothing. So you said just now in your comments, Lackawanna County will reimburse half of that back to Luzerne County, $75,000. Is that written in any agreements?
Yes, yes.
Not
The
just the
language of the proposed agreement is there in front of you, and it's a 50-50 cost sharing
Oh,
agreement.
okay. All right.
So, and then again, we front the expenses. We
Okay,
get half of that paid back from PennDOT and the other partners. PennDOT has all this money from the feds. They collect it, then they throw in their own state money. They feed it to us. We get that. So half of it's reimbursed directly from them, and then Lackawanna gives us the other half. And then Lackawanna goes out to PennDOT and those partners and gets their piece of that reimbursed to themselves.
so I'm reading here, the MPO has an existing grant, the vast majority, the federal transit, the FTA guarantees reimbursement of the majority of the personnel, 90%.
Yes.
And
So that would be like me and the department staff.
Right.
90% of our work involved managing and coordinating the study would be paid back from PennDOT.
okay, all right. Okay, thanks.
Any other questions from council members? All right. Very much.
Thank you.
Discussion regarding ordinance amending 2023 fiscal year budget for Luzerne County for the opioid grant.
Thank you. Good evening, council. Budget and Finance recommends that council approve the addition of funds to the 2023 revenue and expense budget for the opioid fund. This increase will be funded by a 2022 carryover and also an additional 1.396 million in 2023 settlement award. So this fund is non-general fund and it is zero county match. Yeah. Any questions? Sounds great, right?
4 million, yeah, 4 million.
So I guess could I go through
Yeah.
on the next one? Okay.
Sure.
So Budget and Finance also recommends that council approve the addition of funds to the 2023 revenue and expense budgets for the election integrity grant. This fund will be funded by a carryover of 637,000 from 2022, and then an additional grant of 1,041,000 in 2023. And this grant is also non-general fund and zero county match.
Good.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much. All right, discussion regarding the county manager search committee timeline. At the end of your packet, you'll see the timeline. Does anybody have any obviously, you know, if we had the search committee here, we'd be able to have a little bit more of an open-ended discussion, but Mr. Wilovich, go
I
ahead.
do have to hold public meetings. How many public meetings they do hold?
Good question.
They meet once a month.
They have once a week, they have an organizational meeting and they have to get all the ducks in a row, all the funding. That can be enough that can be done by the end of that. Yes.
They're gonna have to commit the time, but yes.
5 weeks from now.
Yeah, 5 weeks if they organize.
You gotta remember, a lot of that stuff has just been done, so it's just updating it, editing, where possible. I mean, my personal opinion, they get together one meeting, do their organization, however they want to do it. that night, they should be able to look at the documents that are in place and begin that process, and within a week, I hope you have time. Which starts the,
Yeah, it's wondering what their availability, I mean, they're all gonna be available for 1 week, meeting.
that's, you know.
That's up to them.
They
that's
applied
up to
for the
them, but,
position.
you know, part of the,
If they apply for the position before, they realize it's time.
yeah, I would hope that anybody who applied understands that the next 2 months, they're gonna have a different schedule as far as, you know, this kind of activity.
And if they have questions on that process, do they call Jennifer Thomas, Sharon, Office of Law, Advertising Group? Do they know where to go?
Ms. Lawrence says, yeah.
Because the three of them are new to this. And
Yeah.
so, just so they know where to go and set up their advertising and all that.
The Leadership of Council, Ms. Lawrence, and the Office of Law would be a few places.
If I could interrupt, I had Miss Lawrence send out a welcome email. I don't know if she got that out yet. But it was just informing them that their county email addresses will be set up. That she'll set them up with appointments to get swipe cards. And then she's putting herself, and she'll copy me on it. And then if they have any questions, we can help them get to the right person accordingly, whether it be Sharon or the Office of Law or whoever they need. We can kind of filter that to whoever they need to get them through whatever they're working on.
And of course, this is a recommended timeline. This isn't, gospel.
Yeah, it's just a guideline to go off of, because ultimately they'll have to pick when their meetings are, and they'll have to schedule interviews around the applicant's schedules, but just an expedited timeline so they realize we're looking for something a lot quicker than the last time around.
Go ahead.
They also have to get interviews, they have to do background checks, they're gonna have to do all kinds of, if they want to do disc assessments or whatever assessments they want to use it. I just figure by the end of February, it's way.
Mhm.
Well, let them get started, and they can decide what's the best time to eat.
It's tentative.
Well, I'm just making suggestions based on this.
And you're right, I mean, but they have to get started. The longer we sit. and
No,
talk
absolutely,
about
I
it,
agree.
we need to get the procedure in place so that you can get, at least get the advertisement. So that's why we start. They can set their deadlines and go.
Any other discussion by council members? All right, discussion regarding position changes.
Yeah, I asked for this to be included in a work session. All the council received a email from January 13th regarding some position situations in several different departments or divisions of the county. Number one, some changes in compensations. There's some requests for like a new position. There's a request for dropping or eliminating one position and adding compensation to other positions. The big thing that I would get very upset with is something like this. January 13th, we were more than 2 weeks into the budget for 2023. We spent months meeting once a week going through the budget for 2023. And they were not discussed at any time. They were not brought forward. This council did not have an opportunity to weigh in. Several years ago, the administration added a position in one department. And council was very upset by that. And then come the next budget, they took the money out for that position. That person was eliminated. Plus, the other thing is, this is sort of like, Mr. Scott was talking about, this is, now you're increasing your budget. Bits and pieces here or there. So if this goes on multiple times throughout the year, you can expect there are going to be multiple expenses in the budget. Hopefully that can be covered, but going forward, it multiplies again. So I really think, number one, if the positions are not approved in the budget that was passed, unless there's an emergency, I would definitely say no, we should not be adding positions or changing compensation without coming to the council and asking and explaining why. Get something like that. Are there job descriptions for any changes there?
I didn't see.
I didn't see any of it. And, you know, if you have a change, are you going to advertise? Go through the process of hiring, merit hiring? That's not indicated either.
Does anybody know why this popped
Well,
up
that's the
so
thing, you don't know
soon?
why.
So soon after January 1st?
Once you guys are done, I'll answer.
Okay.
In case anybody else besides Mr. Lee has questions. I'll wait.
That's my, my statement. Sorry.
Go ahead, Mr. Swets.
So I agree, it's early in the year, but we handle, current form of government, the manager has the power, right? We can talk all about it. We alerted council. We're not trying to create a position without eliminating a position. I get it was a different council. We did the same thing in the solicitor's office with Mr. Lucas' position. When somebody left for solicitor, created a first assistant. We wait the 5 days. Council can object. It's not something we've done before. It's something we've done before. I get the timing isn't great, but we don't know when people are going to leave. If on November 25th, somebody leaves, and now that department's going to present the next day, you know how hard it is to get these packages and the changes, not with the clerk, not with the personnel, just getting everything ready so we're ready to talk about something and have the public and the newspapers here. Somebody resigns, gives her 2 weeks for us to now on the fly in November say, hey, Joe Smith just resigned. I don't even know what we're going to get for a budget. There's no consensus, and you're all working together. I appreciate anything that gets done. And oh, by the way, let me throw this in. Joe just resigned. I want to create a new position. You've never done that. And to Mr. Urban's point from before, if they're going to be a salary board, make it a salary board. I don't care. I just want it to be transparent and I want it to be consistent. I honestly don't. So if every time these are sent, council wants to have, I agree 100% with the job description. There should be a job description. These positions aren't promised to anybody, they would be posted. And because there was an objection or a question, I won't say an objection, we didn't do anything in the meantime. We could have just, all powerful manager could have created the position and you could have removed it in next year's budget. Didn't do it. We held off on the position. So I'm fine waiting. We give council notice. You absolutely have the right to questions. I get the timing portion. Yeah, we put a lot of time in the budget. But if somebody from an office leaves today and they don't have a deputy, I'm going to support a deputy. I get the compounding factor because it's the same thing I say when we don't do a tax increase. Nobody likes to do them, but we lose the compounding factor. I get it, but in the current year, it's going to be found in that division. So if we're asking for $10,000 extra in admin, we'll tell you we're going to take $10,000 from admin and tell you where we're going to get it. So it's nothing that wasn't done before. I get the timing's terrible. I totally agree. But we don't know when people are going to leave, and management is assessed with day-to-day retention. Yes, council has the first string. Yes, there's a lot of time, but we gave the notice and we held off. We did nothing because of a question.
Right.
Yeah.
Is that what happened here? Did someone leave late in the year?
I think it was, I don't have the exact date, but it was in November. It wasn't like November 1st. They gave notice. So the position that's eliminated to create another one, they have left. I think maybe gave their notice mid-November.
Okay.
And to our point, like we could have came to a December council meeting. We have all this other stuff, election integrity grant, budget, ARP, and said, oh, by the way, somebody left. It just would have got buried in everything else. Again, that's my opinion. And it's something we've done before. I have no problem giving notice to council, and I have no problem with council saying, no, we did not fill the position. We did not post for the position.
Any other questions?
And the reality is, we have the ability to change the budget at any point in time. So we could, if we don't like what's happening there with the position funding for it, we could take that funding out of the budget.
I just think, you just need to have an honest discussion though, like changing positions. I mean, if you knew about somebody leaving in November, we could have had an executive session. Somebody could have said something. I mean, we are council. I mean, we're privy to that information just as much as you are. I mean, although you run the day-to-day operations, we sort of control the purse strings here, and we want to be good partners and not have surprises. Then the timing stinks, right? And then, if you're going to raise a different position, compensation, you're creating a new position, higher compensation, it does have a long-term effect on retirement, taxes, as far as FICA and things like that. So you have to look at the whole picture. And so if you have this information, give it to us early. I think 11 of us are very intelligent. We can make those decisions in November, while we're going through the budget process as, hey, we're going to propose these changes. Let's just change the position budget then. And, come now, it looks just really bad.
And I think to your point, I don't have the exact date, nor
Right.
what I have. I'm not sure if it was, like, again, when she actually left, I'm not sure if I was even manager, if it was, again,
Right.
this is November. So, I mean, my point was just in the budget, there's enough budget discussion that just another issue. I get your point, and it
Sure.
could have been brought up. But
But we pay a lot of managers and departments heads here in this county to know this information, to feed us that information. It goes back to the old adage of me thinking that some of management's ill prepared to do the job at a higher salary. This form of government has cost a lot more money than 3 commissioners. Okay, and 3 commissioners used to run the executive and the legislative branch, including being a salary board, election board, and they ran this county just fine. Granted, they didn't have any control over what judges did back in the day. That was on them. Okay, the judges put themselves in jail. It was commissioners and the controller at that time that found, what was going on and brought it to the proper authorities to get these people indicted. But, fast forward, we have this form of government that's gone very much more expensive than the previous form of government. And it seems like there's a lack of communication sometimes with the information that we're entitled to as council, make rational and good decisions here. And I just hope that you open up the line of communications a little bit more in advance. There shouldn't be anything confidential to council. We're sworn in as the legislative body of the county of Luzerne. So everything that you get, we should get, and you should be open and honest with us, and that's the way I look at it. That's why, I propose some of these things. They might be off the wall to some people, but, it may look extreme, but that's because, I've lost my patience already with county administration over the past 11 years.
Any other discussion from council members? All right, let's discuss charter amendments.
All right. So I
Go ahead,
will
Carl, if
be
you
brief.
wanna-
It's getting late. All right. So, okay. Just to give everybody.
We'll just say 9:30, it's 9:26.
Start the clock.
4 minutes.
So a number of us met last Monday, myself, Vice Chairman Lombardo, Councilman Lovick, and Councilman McGinley had all got together. Given the discussions that we were having with the Government Study Commission, we didn't want to leave it wait. We indicated that we intended on getting some amendments together, so we did. Nothing in this is set in stone. I'll run over the 4 of them, but I think I indicated earlier. This is up to us. We just wanted to come here with something. We didn't just want to walk in with budget amendments on the agenda and not have anything to present to you all. But again, nothing set. We can talk about the specifics, the parameters, anything specific you want to talk about, but just to give you a quick rundown of what the 4 of us came up with, and not all of us agreed on every single one. So again, there's different ways we could do this. The first was to cut the amount of council members from 11 to 7. So that way we looked at doing that would be, we would start, because we don't think we can get it on in time for the 2023 election season. So how we would do it is we would cut 2 from 2025 and then 2 from 2027. So, and that's how we would get down to the 7 total. I know there are other council members who prefer 5. Again, more than willing to talk about it. We also did, just for the record, we discussed districts. That's a possibility where we could potentially have a number of districts. This way, everybody who's elected is not from one area. We kicked the idea around a bit. There is some problems because, if you go by state legislative districts, John's district out there is half of Lackawanna County. So it's just, we would have to redraw the districts if we went that way. It wouldn't be just adopt this. And again, everything costs money. We're all tight with the budget. So just keep that in mind if you want districts. I'm not against speaking about it, but I do think that, the more we do there, the more it's going to cost. So that was the first one. The second one was the election board.
Oh, do you want to mention the salary too?
I apologize. Okay, so we did talk a little bit about the salary. Again, this is not in stone. but we figured that we would, since we would cut to 7, the 7 would be paid, or the 6 of the 7 would be paid $10,000, and then the chair would be paid 12.5. So it is a slight increase to what we have now, but overall, given the reduction of the council members, it's actually a budget savings of $18,000. So again, you had a bunch of numbers guys in there, so we were very cognizant about this. We wanted to make sure that, you know, by cutting this, we're cutting the budget as well, or what we're paying out of the general fund. So that's pretty much it for the first one. Anybody want to add anything? Tim, Greg?
Just the legality of the structural changes is the biggest component of all of this, okay? So if the Office of Law, I mean, is there a methodology that you could take it to court, the Commonwealth Court, to get an affirmation or you know, of law to see if it's legal?
We'll assess all of the changes at one time, because we're gonna be compounding changes, which may cause more structural deficit.
But what I'm saying though is like based on the 2 court cases that were mentioned earlier tonight, those are structural changes, and going from at-large to district is a huge structural change, and it's also an elimination of county council
We don't
members.
have to do that. This is
Right.
a good point that we shouldn't do that because of this, you know?
Well, but what I'm saying though is if there's an internal disagreement on legality,
Okay.
I would love to see all of us collectively, you know, take it to court, let Commonwealth Court decide it, right? Based on the Supreme Court case of the past, to see if we can do it legally. And that way it'll put the issue to bed. And then you'll know whether or not you need to go GSC, or you can put the ordinance.
Why spend weeks talking about something about 7, 9, 5 members of district
Understood.
if it's illegal?
Mhm.
So that'd be good to know.
But I do think the first step is to get a legal opinion from the Office of Law. I think that's where we go.
Well, I
from
think-
here. So,
I did reach out to the State House too.
okay.
So their legal team got back to me and they said that, well, I asked them, you know, what the standard was for government study commission versus a charter amendment itself. So they said that this is Title 53, Chapter 29, amendment of existing charter or optional plan, explains procedure for changing size of a home rule county government body, changes in the method of election of municipal governing body from at-large to elections by district may be implemented by amending a home rule charter or optional plan without creation of government study commission.
Can you send me that?
Yeah.
Please, thank
Is
you.
it a copy?
You can just
Send
send it
it
to
to all
all
of
of
us,
us if you don't
send it
mind.
around.
Yeah.
Yeah, all
So we
right.
can at least review
Because
that.
I reached out to Brooks on coffee.
Yeah.
His manager, they got in touch with Harrisburg and the legal team there.
And the idea behind districts too was, because I'll tell you, I was like the big proponent of
You
that
were.
last year. And after thinking about it, and especially after the legislative district change, I don't think it makes any sense anymore personally. I know that, like, you know, sometimes we get into a rare situation where you have more than one council member from the same town or from the same region. But generally, we haven't really had that issue too much. So I'm fine with the way that things would be if we kept at large.
Excellent.
But again, all up to
Perfect.
discussion.
Any other questions, issues before we move on?
clock.
I'm trying, okay, you said 9:30, so I'm trying here.
It's past.
Are we good?
No, it's
Okay.
9:33.
I mean, you're
Let's
gonna,
go.
you're bearing with me for a little longer, so the second
You gotta
one,
remember, you're throwing this out there today, we're gonna have a couple of
and
discussions.
we are,
Well,
yes.
we can even bring this up as strategic initiatives.
Yes.
Meeting,
Yeah.
And I do think that that's the best place for it to go too, if you wanna kick this around a little bit more, you know, so just so it's not just us doing it, we get as many of them. Again, just remember, we can't meet more than 6 of us outside of here, otherwise we have a
5.
quorum, or more than 5 of us,
5.
otherwise we have a quorum, sorry, and again, so we had to limit the amount of us who could get together and kick these ideas around, so yeah, that's where we go from here, it's not a bad idea. So the second one was the election board. Now, again, this, we talked about at length. What we settled on was keeping the two members of the, how is it worded, in the highest.
The highest two in the last governor's election.
Okay, the highest 2 parties in the last governor's election, which is typically Democrat and Republican. So then what we thought about doing was putting a member of this council on as the chair, as opposed to having those 4 pick the chair of the election the election board. Again, the thought process behind this is basically, we all saw the results of the last few elections. We essentially are very hands-off because we have no say in anything. We pick the 4 members and that's that. So we came up with, at least if we get a council member on there, we can have some insight and we can have some, like a better look and understanding and more information as to what's going on before it gets to us. I mean, we have people here all the time yelling about the election. We have no say. We appoint these 4 and that's it. It's out of our hands. So there was conversation, I will say, I believe it was Councilman Milovic wanted to do it a little differently. So if you want to put that out there.
Well,
so
the idea that I had is we would appoint all 5 members. We'd have the 2 majority parties and we'd appoint a 3rd party as the 5th member. And then what we could do is the 5 of them amongst themselves would pick their own chair. Between the 5 of those members, one of them would be chair.
It would keep us out of it.
We would stay out of it. That way there'd be an alternative viewpoint from a different party. I think that would be another option on this.
But it would be a little more difficult to work out, I do think. So,
Again, we would also, another thing to look at is changing the requirements of the election board, like adding a line there for, since registration for anybody that's 18, you can register at 45 and still not be eligible for 4 years out. So I think we need to fix that issue as well. And also maybe changing the years. Is it 4 year, Steve, 4 years?
4-year terms.
Yeah.
No, not the terms, for eligibility, to be honest, at 5 years.
5
Maybe go
initially,
from
yeah.
5 to 3 or 2, maybe we can change that. Just a bunch of things out there that we can talk.
You gotta
about.
get the age
Yeah, but what I
discrimination
would
out of
say,
there
what
too.
I said is you would have to be a member of your party from registration or.
Right now it's 4, I think.
So I'm saying-
Well, you have to be continuously for 4.
Or
but-
from start of registration.
Right.
So if you were 18, you registered last year, or if you're 19, registered last year, you would fall in that because you would have been Republican since you registered.
I still think you gotta pull the age restriction out
But it's
because,
not an age restriction anymore,
Well-
because it's since registration.
Yeah.
So you could be if you could be 25 and still not qualified till you're 30 because of that 5-year restriction. So it'd be from since registration or 5 years, whichever comes first.
I might be bucking the trend a little bit here, but I don't personally agree with the 5-year restriction being changed. I think that it's very easy for someone to register as, say, a Republican one day, and then a majority Democrat council will say, oh, we're picking a Republican, but then, they're just picking somebody that's just registered as a Republican maybe last year because they know somebody's term will be up or whatever.
I agree.
I think that would be my only concern. That's my only concern about that is, if we could find a creative way to address that, I'd
And
be all
again,
for
we're
it.
just giving you some food for
But the
thought.
since registration, I think, would be the most important.
Yeah.
The since registration or 5 years. Because if you're 19 and you registered a year ago, you did not change your party, you would qualify.
This was the one we thought was gonna be the more difficult one, so
Yes, yes.
if anybody has any thoughts or suggestions on
Throw them
it.
out there. Send us an
No.
email so we can keep it moving. All right, the third one, we're good to move on to the third. So it was with regards to the retirement board, I believe the airport board. So the way we were looking at doing it is, I think the current makeup will take the retirement board. There are 2 council members, an employee representative, the manager, and I believe someone from budget and finance.
That's fine.
So we're looking at taking out, no offense, either the manager, Brian, or the budget and finance. I do think I personally am leaning more to removing the manager, give him some more so he can be other places. And I do think it's important that we have somebody from budget and finance still on that. But the idea is we're responsible for making these contributions and funding this, and we have 2 members as opposed to, there's 3. Really, we are the minority on the board that we are supposed to be funding.
So you're saying go with 3
So
council.
3 council members, you get rid of, my opinion would be the manager. I just think it's important to have somebody from budget and finance, even though, our manager is former budget and finance guy, so you could probably do a jack of all trades there, so, but that would be the third one. Any questions, issues with that one? Tim, anything to add? Tim, anything to add?
No, I think.
Greg, we're good?
Talk about all those
Yeah.
items that you
Yep,
mentioned.
all right, so then the last one, and I'll be brief, is, it was with the boards. I think this is the problem you all were just discussing, where we're looking to make it so that these qualified people aren't prevented from serving on boards. And
Boards
again,
and commissions.
boards and commissions, and I think we did this with authorities
This lined
already
up
in
in
the
the
past.
16 election, one passed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
so.
authorities passed. Boards and commissions.
The Rainbow Resolution, he's right there.
You know, John,
Okay, so we would just be looking to, make that consistent and, fix the conflicts that we have there. Again, we came up with 4. If you have more, if you have something, let us know, but I think that, obviously, I think there's a limit, 3 that we could even put on here. What's it, 3 or 4?
I'm not sure, I'll still.
So, yeah, 3 or 4, Harry, that we're allowed to even put on the ballot. You have any idea?
I'll check that.
Fair enough. So, but I don't think we should do that anyway, I mean, we're just talking about giving them the 60-page, home rule. Let's keep it concise.
simple.
Let's keep it simple. There's nothing better than, do you agree with having 7 councilmen instead of 11? Yes or no? Like, that's simple. Nobody can lose, provided that legally we can do it. Simple, it's easy, it's not confusing, it doesn't require anybody to read a 60-page document, and we cut the members of council. So, I mean, but again, we can do whatever we want. We can do 2 of these. We can do none of these. We could, if someone else has a better idea, we just wanted to get the ball rolling and get some talks going on potential budget amendments in the event that the Government Study Commission did not pass tonight. So they were our 4. Did I miss anything, gentlemen?
You're good.
Good? All right, excellent.
All right, thank you. If there's no other discussion. Budget reports.
Carl, could you send that out and,
Yeah.
documents so everybody can read?
Thank you, Mr.
You don't
Lombardo.
trust my notes, Tim?
I trust you, but I don't know how many people can read.
I got you.
We are on the clock here, so I will be brief. I don't have anything specific to the budget that was in council's packet. I just had 2 brief notes. One, the tax bills will be sent out on February 14th. And on February, what's that?
February 14th.
What's that?
Valentine's Day, we have a meeting, we're gonna be
I
talking
know.
about American Rescue Funds. Got comments for the ABC.
I cannot wait. And the second item was February 17th. We will be closing the books on the 2022 budget. So unless there's any questions on the report in the packet, that's all I have. Yes,
Just
Mr.
for
Swets?
clarification.
Sure.
For Chris, and I don't know for meeting. We still get bills at this point, so as of December 31st, that's not the final number, just for the public, and I realize it's common sense to most, but just to be transparent. That number we ended at, the year's not closed yet, that's not gonna be the final number. We'll still get bills in January that are December bills, so just want to throw that out there.
Thank you.
Just one note, Lombardo,
Go ahead.
I've asked Mr. Swets and Mr. Alessandro, for the Budget Finance Committee, Mr. Thornton, Ms. Radel, Mr. Perry, looking to have a meeting with the auditors the first Tuesday in February, which will be the 7th. So we can get sort of the schedule and talk about the budget, see where things are, what their plans are. Just so if you check your schedules, see if that's a good date. Appreciate it.
Pretty sure it's good day.
Yeah, I tried to go on Tuesday because everybody sort of blocks Tuesdays out.
I think it is.
Anything else? All right, thank you very much. Move to public comment. Mr. Griffith first.
Tell them age before beauty, Mark.
The only thing I have for council at the work session is I'm so glad that Mr. McGinley brought up the issue of position budget. This has been a problem for this council. I remember bringing resolutions and having them voted down and being told that that's not a function of council to regulate the work of the manager. And I said at those meetings, and I will say again, council deserves the respect and the courtesy as the fiduciary responsible party that sets the budget to at least be consulted, if nothing else, at least be consulted as to why we're making a position change by the manager. Not get an email and says, hey, guess what? We're going to create a deputy that's going to cost us an additional $1,000 in the human resources department with no explanation at all where the $1,000 is going to come from. Yeah, I think somewhere along the line, I think the office law made the ruling the council can't tell the manager he can't hire and fire, but council certainly sets the parameters of the budget. And I think the issue is council needs to have some authority to tell the manager, look, if you're gonna give a human resources deputy $1,000 more money, where's it gonna come from? That's the issue. And I don't think council has a problem with it if you know where the thousand is gonna come from, but this is perpetual. Every year, it's gonna be $1,000 more for the budget. And if you have 40 or 50 departments and they all do that, you're gonna bust the budget pretty quick. The issue is that we can't change this stuff because it just happens. I think that the position change for deputy was not something that just happened. I don't think the hearing examiner removal was something that just happened at the jail. These things are something that was contemplated at some point along the way, either before the budget or during the budget process. There's no reason at all why we're at the January date and you're getting position change budgets already. None at all. You can't tell me that the Human Resources Department didn't know they needed a deputy before January the 13th. You just can't tell me they didn't think about putting that in the position budget. It's a real problem for this council, and it's been a problem for this council since 2012. It needs to be addressed in the administrative code to tell the manager, if you want to change a position, you have to at least come to a work session and explain to council why you're changing that position. There's nothing in this county that's on fire right now that you got to change a position today because the sky is falling and we got to have a position. I just don't believe that is the case. Not when you have other things that are pending issues that haven't gotten addressed that are pending issues. But it seems like a position budget just happens. Well, here's a letter, we're changing a position. Here's a letter, we're changing a position. Council has no authority at all. Yeah, you can contest it in 5 days. What good's it going to do you if you don't even know why it's starting? Manager should be required to tell council before he changes a position, why he's changing it and where the money's coming from. That's courtesy and respect to this body as a legislative branch. I sat there, I know how distressing it is not to know that information. And I think if that happened, that would go a long way. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Griffith. Mr. Rabel?
Just two things. One, Mr. Mitchell brought up the case ruling.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Your 3 minutes is up. Wow, that was the fastest 3 minutes. 3 words. He brought up from Mr. Coffer's, State Representative Coffer's office about the, like if you were to reduce counsel. Just so you know, that Pilcheski case was in 2014, so it was fairly recent. And I just wanted to make aware of council that as I've gone to state meetings for nearly as long as I've attended these meetings. One of the state meetings I attended and where most of the 67 counties were represented was the state Senate committee wanted, state government committee wanted to switch the positions from prothonotary and clerk of courts from county control to state control. And all of the clerk of courts and prothonotaries were in attendance. Most of them, I don't know if ours was. But the bottom line of that meeting was that they wanted to change it by simple legislation. Well, the Bucks County prothonotary spoke to the Senate State Government Committee at the time and said, "You can't do this." And the chairman said, "Why can't we?" And he says, "You might want to check with your legal because you cannot change constitutionally prescribed offices from county control to state control without amending the state constitution, Article 9, Section 3, specifically of the state constitution." So where I'm getting at with what Mr. Mitchell brought up is I don't believe that that was the case ruling that I brought up, Pilcheski versus Lackawanna County Commissioners, updated that statute that you brought up. I'm very familiar with that statute that's in the home rule optional plan law. So I think what needs to happen is there needs to be that update made. The legislature, you know, they have a habit not to amend things when a state Supreme Court precedential ruling happens. So that's the first point. The second point is I just want to make council aware that a state senator from Pennsylvania has been appointed as the Chesapeake Bay Commission chair. And he happens to also be the Appropriations Committee chair, Mr. Scott Martin. So you might want to have some words with him if you are fans of the rain tax or not fans of the rain tax, and also with the state budget coming up this year. And I hope, and I want to remind like Ms. McDermott, as I reminded in the past, and Mr. Benyus and a few others about the court reimbursements. That needs to be brought up again, because 5.6% was raised during, I believe, the end of the shutdown. So I hope council makes our state senators and representatives aware. Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Thank you, Mr. Rainbow. Anybody else for public comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting's adjourned 9:49 PM. Thank you very much.
Well done, well done.
No, we got close though. Just 19 minutes. Just 19 minutes.